Welcome to Parshas Shelach. Parshas Shelach is the pivotal transition from us going from Mount Sinai to Eretz Israel to getting stuck in the desert for the next 38 years, because this is the story of the spies. Parsha begins, Vayadaber Hashem el Moshe Lemo. Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, Shlach lecha anashim vayasuru es Eretz Canaan asher ani noisen livnei Yisrael ish echad lemate avoisav tishlachu kol nasi bahem. Hashem says to Moshe, send men forth for yourself, if you please. Send men forth is what it translates. Shlach lecha, for yourself send, because the Jewish people came to Moshe and said, we need to spy out the land. So Moshe went to Hashem and said, this is what they want. And Hashem said, well, if you need to do it, if you want to do it, then do it for yourself. I'm not telling you do it, but you're doing it for yourself. Send out, go and spy out the land of Canaan that I'm giving to the children of Israel, one man from each tribe. You send everyone a leader among them. Pick 12 leaders. So Moshe picked 12 men, and he sent them into Israel, giving them specific instructions. So the Torah lists all the 12 people. Included in the list is, the way the Torah puts it is, verse 8, Lemate Ephraim, from the tribe of Ephraim, Hoshea bin Nun. Hoshea bin Nun, the son of Nun. But everyone else, Lemate Binyomim, Palti ben Rafu. This is bin versus ben, is reasons for it. That little section then ends after listing all 12 tribes and all the 12 leaders that are going in for each tribe. It says, these are the names of the men who Moshe sent to spy out the land. Elu shemois hanashim asher shalach Moshe lasur es haaretz, that he sent to spy out the land. Vayikra Moshe leHoshea bin Nun Yehoshua. And Moshe called Yehoshua bin Nun Yehoshua. So Moshe gave him a yud at the beginning of his name, and it's brought down. Where did he get this yud from? He got it from Sarai, became Sarah. The yud became a hey. Hashem renamed her, and from that yud, Moshe used that yud, whatever that means, to give Yehoshua extra protection. He knew Yehoshua needed protection. Yehoshua was Moshe's, we'll call him servant, he was Moshe's assistant. Everything Moshe did, when it came to setting up the base medrash and everybody needed to come learn, Yehoshua was the one early in the morning setting up the chairs and tables. Put it into our terms. He was the one who did everything for Moshe. And Hoshea, Moshe says, no, your name is Yehoshua, to give him protection from what might happen. Now, interestingly enough, we call this the Parsha of the Meraglim, the spies. The Torah here has not mentioned the word Meraglim once. It's called them tourists. Tour the land. Go and look at the land. And then Moshe says, go spy out the land, not using the word sur as opposed to meragel. Tour the land. Go from ascend here in the south, climb the mountain, see the land, how it is. Look at the people that dwells. Is it strong or weak? Is it few or numerous? How is the land in which it dwells? Is it good or bad? What are the cities like? Are they open? Are they fortified? Is the land fertile or is lean? Are there trees? Strengthen yourselves and take from the fruit of the land. The days of the season was the first ripe grapes. The beginning of the grape season, grapes were ripe. That's the time they went in. They went up. They spied out the land from the wilderness of Sin to expanse of the approach of Hamas. Different word. They ascended in the south, arrived at Hebron. And interesting enough, then they keep saying plural. They. And then it says, and he came to Hebron. And the Mefarshim bring us, who's this he? Well, there was Kalev. Kalev detoured, and he says, if I'm going to go on this mission, I need to go to the Avos. Abraham, Sarah, Yitzchak, Rivka, Yaakov, and Leah were buried there, as well as Adam and Chava. They were all buried in Hebron. They're still there. We can still go to Maras Machpelah in Hebron. And Kalev went to go and daven at the grave sites of the Avos so that he would get extra strength, because he knew there was a potential high risk in this mission. So he went to Hebron. They came to the valley of Eshkol. They cut a vine with one cluster of grapes that carried on a double pole, and of the pomegranates and the figs. So they brought back one cluster of grapes, pomegranates and figs, and it's brought that they needed to carry these things on a pole. The grapes on a pole are massive fruits. The land of Israel was extremely blessed with huge fruits. They returned from spying out the land at the end of 40 days. They went and came to Moshe and Aaron in the Sinai assembly in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. They brought back a report to them and the entire assembly, and they showed them the fruit of the land. All well and good. They did what they were told to do. Then they reported back and they said, we arrived in the land that you sent us, and indeed it does flow with milk and honey. It's a good land. This is its fruit. But the people that dwell in this land are powerful. The cities are fortified and very great. And we also saw the offspring of the giant. And guess what? Amalek lives there. He's in the area of the south. The Hittite, the Jebusite, the Amorite all dwell in the mountains. The Canaanim live by the sea and the banks of the Jordan. And the people suddenly start panicking because their tone just changed ever so slightly. Caleb silenced the people towards Moshe, and he said, we're going to ascend, we're going to conquer it, we surely shall do it. But the men who ascended with him said, we can't go up because they're too strong for us. They brought forth to the children of Israel an evil report of the land that they'd spied out, saying, the land through which we have passed to spy it out is a land that devours its inhabitants. I'll come back to some of this. All the people that we saw in it were huge. There we saw the Nephilim, the sons of the giant, from among the Nephilim. We were like grasshoppers in our eyes, and so were we in their eyes. The entire assembly raised up and issued its voice. The people wept that night. All the children of Israel murmured against Moshe and Aaron. The entire assembly said to them, if only we had died in the land of Egypt, rather than dying in the wilderness. Why is Hashem bringing us this land to die by the sword? Our wives and young children will be taken in captivity. Is it not better for us to return to Egypt? They said to one another, let's appoint another leader and let's scuttle back to Egypt. Moshe and Aaron fell on their face, the entire assembly, before the entire assembly. Yoshua bin Nun and Caleb bin Yefuneh, of all the spies, tore their garments. They spoke to the assembly. The land that we passed through to spy out is very good. If Hashem desires us, he will bring us this land and give us the land that's flowing with milk and honey. Don't rebel against Hashem. Do not fear, should not fear. But the entire assembly were lost. They would not listen. Hashem said to Moshe, this is enough. You've provoked me enough. All the signs I've shown you in your midst, I'm going to smite these people with a plague. I'm going to annihilate them and make you a greater and more powerful nation. And then Moshe said, no, that's not going to work, Hashem, because the world are going to say, well, you took them out of Egypt and you couldn't take them into Israel. Not going to work. So the whole thing ends. Moshe davens. He invokes the 13 attributes of mercy of Hashem, and Hashem forgives the people. And he says, there's going to be a decree against you. And essentially the decrees, I won't go through it like I have been word for word, but essentially what he says is the 10 spies who spied out the land and brought to cause this evil report are going to die, and they died in a plague. The rest of the people, all the adults, all the men over the age of 20 are going to die in the desert, and therefore you're going to be walking around for the next 38 years, and they will die, and this day will be a day of mourning forever. We call this day Tisha B'Av. That was the day that it started the negativity. Just as an aftermath, some of the people decided, let's go up to Israel. Hashem wants us to go, we're going up. And a group of people went up to Israel, and Hashem said, don't. Moshe said, don't, but they still went. The Amalekites and the Canaanites who dwelled on the mountain came down, struck them, and killed them. A very, very difficult episode in Jewish history. It was following the end of last week's Parsha, where we had Miriam speaking Lashon Hara with Aaron about Moshe. We suddenly have the spies coming back and speaking Lashon Hara about the land of Israel. They didn't learn from the mistake. And the people themselves went back to their tents and cried and spoke Lashon Hara about Moshe and about the land, and did not learn from the mistake. And Hashem said, enough is enough. we need to draw a line in the sand. These people have complained too much. Interestingly enough, it's only in Parshas Devarim that they are called Meraglim. When Moshe in Devarim, because Devarim is where Moshe goes through at the end of his life, the last few weeks of his life, he goes through all of the episodes and what happened to them and summarizes everything. At that point, he calls them Meraglim. Says, all of you approach me, let us send men ahead to spy out the land, bring word back to us, the road on which we should send and the cities to which we should come. The idea was good in my eyes. So I took 12 men, one for each tribe. They turned and went up the mountain. He goes through the whole thing, exactly what happened. And there he describes them as Meraglim, as spies. Here they're tourists. Here they should go in and be tourists. Just to go through some of the things that we discussed there very quickly, they were walking around the land. As I said, Caleb went to Hebron, the rest of them carried on their merry way, and what they see happening, a land that devours its inhabitants. They didn't realize was Hashem had put in front of them funerals. The people in the land were suddenly suffering death. There's one death after another, and all the people were engrossed in burying these people that had died, giving these 12 men free reign in the land. They could spy out and do whatever they wanted. But what did they see? They saw, oh, this is a land that kills people, as opposed to saying, thank you, Hashem, for killing the people so we can walk freely. Just one of the little episodes. Every little episode, they just looked at things the wrong way. They were content in what they were doing. They were sitting in their tents, waiting to go to the next stop whenever Hashem said it's time to go, and learning Torah and living a very content life. Getting man every day. Yes, last week they complained about the man, some of them. But getting man, getting other slav, getting the quail, eating, not having to worry about anything. You know, if their clothes were dirty, they took them off, put them in the clouds, and they came back clean. If the kids grew, the clothes grew with the kids. It was a miraculous life. They knew they're going into Israel. And what is Israel about? Hard work. We've got to farm. We've got to get out of this idyllic lifestyle that we've got. We've got to become normal human beings. And therefore, maybe we don't want to do that. And therefore, there's one of the reasons potentially that they rebelled against Hashem. Nowhere in their story do we see them talking about how the goodness and the good things that Hashem did for them. It was only the negativity. The other interesting thing is they spoke about the Amalek. The people of Amalek were living there and they were scared of Amalek because we go all the way back. Amalek attacked us just after we went through the Sea of Reeds, Yom Suf. Amalek attacked us that first time. And at that time, Moshe had said, Yehoshua is going to be the leader. And Moshe went and stood up on a mountain where the soldiers could see them for the fighting, could see him when they were fighting. And he raised his arms. And whenever his arms were raised, we were winning the battle. And whenever his arms dropped, we were losing the battle. And Yehoshua, his faithful servant, was there leading the war. This same Yehoshua that was one of the 12. And Hur and Aaron were with him, and they held his arms up, and we prevailed in the battle. The significance or the symbolism of him holding up his hands is look up to Hashem. It's all from Hashem. Everything comes from Hashem. And that's really essentially the message through this Parsha, the whole Torah, and all of life. Everything comes from Hashem. And if we can recognize that, then we can hold the heads up high and keep moving forward, connecting to Hashem. Because what happens after this is the whole decree is spelled out, and the Parsha ends that Hashem tells them that they will spend 40 years in the desert, 1 year for every day that they spied out the land. They were there for 40 days. That was the 40-year decree. And it says that they stayed in Kadesh, where they were, for many days. And we know that they stayed there. What does it say here? I can't see it right now. Oh, yeah. Like the number of days you spied out the land, 40 days, a day for a year, a day for a year shall you bear your iniquities, 40 years, and you shall comprehend straying from me. You strayed from Hashem, and therefore they had to stay where they were. And in fact, they stayed there for the next 19 years. And what happened every year on Tisha B'Av was they were told to dig a grave and get in the grave. And the next morning, a percentage of those people did not wake up. And until the 40th year when they went in on Tisha B'Av, remember the 9th of Av, with the moon. The new moon is at the smallest point. The 15th, the middle of the month, is when it's full moon. And so they went in on the 9th, and they all woke up. Nobody died. And they went in on the 10th and the 11th, and suddenly they realized, this must be it. We're ready to go into the land. Part of what happened here was Moshe was told, well, you're not going in the land. We know Moshe was punished finally for hitting the rock at the end, when Miriam died, a few weeks time's Parsha, but this was one of the reasons. Moshe didn't do what was right, and so therefore he was punished with all of the people. Aaron also didn't go in the land. The Torah then moves on. And now you've got a people that are now stuck for the next 38 years. What does the Torah speak about next? When you get to the land, this is what you shall do. Hashem is giving them hope. He's saying, you're still going to get there. There's still going to be a Jewish people. You will never end. The Jewish people will never, ever be destroyed in this world. Because if there is no Jewish people, there is no world. It's a straight line. There's no question about it. And therefore Hashem says, "V'adaber Hashem el Moshe le'emor daber b'nei Yisrael v'amarta alehem ki savo el eretz moshvosechem asher ani noisen lachem." When you go to the land of your dwelling places that I will give you, Hashem, then you're going to perform. You're going to bring offerings. You're going to bring oil offerings, and you're going to bring certain libations. You will bring with some of the offerings. We will bring wine to pour out with an offering, telling us, and oil. Wine, oil, flour is brought with oil, and animal offerings are brought with wine. And so we're told straight away, this is what's going to happen. The next section of the Torah talks about the mitzvah of challah. Now, what we call challah, I think we've mentioned this a number of times, the bread we eat is called challah. It's actually not. It's wrong. We call it challah to remember the mitzvah of taking challah. Challah is a portion of every dough that we make over a certain amount, which is given to a kohen in times when we can. Right now, we can't give it to the kohanim because it can only be eaten in a state of purity, and none of us are considered ritually pure. So therefore, we still take challah, we still say a bracha when we take the challah, but we dispose of it. We can't give it to a kohen. We call the bread we eat on Shabbos challah to remind us that we need to take challah, and when we get to Eretz Yisrael, that challah we take should be given to the kohanim. Kohanim and their families are allowed to eat challah. It has a status of truma, which is one of the gifts given to the kohanim. Exactly the same, can only be eaten by a kohen and his family in a state of ritual purity. Challah is one of those mitzvahs given to women. The special mitzvah, women are not the only ones who have to do it. A man, if he wants to bake and take challah, he can. But there's 3 special mitzvahs given to women. Challah, hadlakas neros, lighting Shabbos and Yom Tov candles, and mitzvah of nida. Those 3 mitzvahs are specifically women mitzvahs. Obviously, if a man has to light candles, he lights candles, but they are women's mitzvahs.
And what's the last one?
Nida is ritual impurity for a woman during her period. So when a married woman needs to separate from her husband. The Torah then talks about unintentional idol worship. And what happens if you worship an idol that you shouldn't? We should not be worshiping idols. And then intentional idol worship. What are the punishments for that? Why? Because we're not connected to Hashem, we resort to doing things in the wrong way. It then brings a very short parsha on somebody who's known as the Mekoshes. The Mekoshes was a person who gathered wood on Shabbos. Why it's brought here in the Torah is an interesting question. According to most of the commentaries, Rashi brings this in the name of the Sifri, I believe. This actually happened in the second Shabbos after going through Yom Suf. They were given the mitzvahs of Shabbos, amongst other mitzvahs, before they went, between the time of going out of Egypt, we then went through the sea, and then we had 6 weeks till we got to Har Sinai, and the giving of the Torah. A number of mitzvahs were given. One of them was Shabbos. They kept Shabbos for a week. The second week, somebody went out and gathered wood. He was warned, and they didn't know what to do with him. And it's brought here in the Parsha, in the middle of Shelach. There's an interesting discussions whereby some commentators say that the Torah is in order. Others, like Rashi, says, no, things are brought for whenever they're brought for reasons. But this really happened much, much earlier. It's just being brought here because it needed to be brought at this point. The Mekoshesh gathered the wood. He was warned. They didn't know what to do with him. They brought him to Moshe. Moshe said, lock him up in jail, put him in custody for a time until I get clarification from Hashem. Hashem told him, no, somebody who is Mechal Shabbos and is warned properly, and there's a proper Beis Din, all of these things need to happen, is subject to a death penalty of stoning. And so that's what they did. He was stoned. And then the Torah gets to Maftir, and we get to the Torah part of Tzitzis. The Parsha of Tzitzis, which we say twice a day as part of the Shema. And this is the discussion, if you remember, in the Haggadah, where it says, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said, I kavin shivim shana, I'm like a 70-year-old man, and nobody would listen to me until Ben Zoyma came along and he clarified what it means, and that whole story is about whether we should be saying this part of Shema at night as well as in the day. Because the mitzvah of tzitzis is a time-bound positive mitzvah, only worn during the day by Torah law. So tzitzis, let me work through some of the words of tzitzis, and then we'll come back to some of the little details. Hashem said to Moshe, saying, Daber el b'nei Israel, speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, V'asu lahem tzitzis, you shall make yourself tzitzis, al kanfei bigdeim, on the corners of your garment, the dorasam, throughout your generations, nasnu al tzitzis akanaf sil techeles, and you shall put on each corner a thread of techeles, being, let's call it turquoise wool, whatever, we'll come back to what techeles is or isn't. That's the same word, interesting enough, that you shouldn't tour. But you shall put this turquoise wool, they shall be tzitzis for you, that you may see it, and remember all the mitzvahs of Hashem, and perform them, and not explore after los asuru, achrei levavchem v'achrei nechem, after your heart and your eyes. In other words, you see the tzitzis and it reminds you. Don't stray after your heart and your eyes. Asher atem zonim acharem, which you see before you, after which you stray. Lema'an tizkuru v'asisem es kol mitzvosai, so that you shall remember and perform all the mitzvahs. V'isem kodeshim le'elokechem, that you shall be holy to Hashem your God. Ani Hashem Elokechem, I am Hashem your God, Asher Otzeisi Eschem Eretz Yisrael, who took you out of the land of Egypt. Lo Yislachem Le'elokim, to be a God for you. Ani Hashem Elokechem, I am Hashem your God. Okay, there's a lot to unpack in tzitzis.
Excuse me, interrupted. I always have difficulty when I'm saying that why ladies must say it.
Because it's part of the Torah. So it's part of the Torah. So firstly, that's the whole discussion in some ways in the Haggadah from the Gemara, in that the last part of it is about that Hashem took us out of Egypt. And the discussion is, so that's the main thing. We still need to know that, firstly, tzitzis are something we wear when we have a four-cornered garment. It's a voluntary mitzvah. We don't have to wear tzitzis. Only if you're wearing a four-cornered garment do you put tzitzis on that garment. In fact, we're not allowed to wear a four-cornered garment without tzitzis on it. And there's an interesting thing, like people wear ponchos, that have got slits down both sides. Can you wear that without putting tzitzis on? Can we wear tzitzis? The Torah speaks about tzitzis as being with techeles, with this turquoise dye. Well, most people for the last 1,000 plus years, 1,500 years probably, have not had techeles. We didn't know what it was. Just about 120, 130 years ago, the Radziner Rebbe went and discovered what he felt was techeles, which comes from a sea creature, which he thought was a cuttlefish, and he was able to extract a blue dye out of the cuttlefish, and Radzina Hasidim and Breslov Hasidim still wear tzitzis with the blue dye from the cuttlefish. Rabbi Herzog, who was the first chief rabbi of Israel, whose grandson is now the president of Israel, he did some investigation. He came up with, as far as I recall, he was Muriel's trunculus, which is what they use today. So people who wear tzitzis today, besides for Radzina and Breslov Hasidim, wear it from a type of a snail called the Murielus trunculus. And many people do wear techeles on their tzitzis today. And so you will see people there. Most people don't, because it's not confirmed that that is the actual tzitzis. By wearing them, you're not losing anything. But if we don't have a tradition that's it, then that's the whole discussion whether we should or shouldn't wear it. So my rabbis, my teachers don't wear it, and therefore I don't. Yeah. Until I get the go-ahead from one of my teachers that that's the right thing to do, then we do it. So we are missing out on not having it. But by using that blue dye, we're not losing anything. If it's the wrong thing, it doesn't matter. So we can have all white tzitzis or one blue thread. And there's many, many different ways of tying the tzitzis. And they are extremely symbolic. So the word tzitzis, spelled in the Torah, spelled differently to if we spell it out fully. But in the Torah, it's spelled tzadi yud, tzadi tov. If we spell out fully, it's got another yud. So spelling it out fully with the other yud, tzadi and tzadi is 90. Plus yud is 10 is 100, plus another tzadi is another 90, plus another yud is 10 is 200. 90, 10, 90, 10 is 200. Tov is 400 is 600. Okay. Right, so we've got 600 there, exactly, right. Now, what is brought down, and the reason I have my prop today, I brought my talis.
Show and tell.
Show and tell. Okay, so the way we tie our tzitzis, this is an Ashkenazi way of tying it. There's many, many different ways. But essentially, you tie 5 knots. 1, 2, I'm going backwards, 3, 4, 5 double knots. So 600 plus 5 is 605. There are 4 strings which are doubled over in the garment, which is 8. Gives us another 8. 605 plus 8 is 613. The tzitzis represent all the mitzvahs. And remember what we said in tzitzis. So, Leman tizkaru v'asisem oisam es kol mitzvosai, so that you will remember and perform all the mitzvahs. So that's in the tzitzis. Also, we remember Hashem. So the way we tie them is we have 7 loops around between the first and second knot, 8 between the second and the third, 11 between the third and the fourth, and 13 between the fourth and the fifth. All of this, it relates directly to Hashem. 7 and 8 is 15. Yud and a Hey is one of Hashem's names. We say Yud Kei Vav Kei, Yud Hey, Yud and then a Hey is Hashem's name. 15. The next one is 11, Echad. The gematria of Echad is Aleph, Chet, Dalet is 184. 184 is 11. Sorry, it's 13. Hang on. Oh, sorry. So let me go back. Sorry. I had 15 and 11 is 26. Give me Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is Hashem's name. Right. Then I've got 13, which is Echad, which is Hashem is 1. So within my tzitzis, within each of the strings, I've got Hashem. What it's also brought is that you should look at them, okay, and we should see the blue dye. Now, obviously, many people don't have the turquoise dye, but we should look at the turquoise dye, and we should think about that color turquoise, which will remind us of the color of the sea, which when we're looking at the ocean, we're going to see the horizon. It's going to remind us of the color of the sky, which is going to remind us of Hashem being above all of that. And the color of Hashem's throne is that color. And so when we wear tzitzis, which is one of the things why people wear tzitzis, when they're wearing an undergarment with tzitzis on, to wear the tzitzis out so that you can see them at all times and remind ourselves, Hashem's in control. And that leads us from one step to another to know Hashem is in control of everything. Which leads me into the point that I really want to bring out today, because given the way the world is right now, and what happened last week. I don't know if you remember last week, but in last week's Parsha Shelach, we spoke about the 7 books of the Torah, and we had the 2 upside down backward nuns, where there were 2 verses in the middle of the Parsha, and the Mefarshim bring, we have Bereshis, Shmois, Vayikra, beginning of Bamidbar until the first nun. The 2 verses between the 2 nuns is 5. The rest of Bamidbar is 6, and then Devarim is 7. So there's 7 books of the Torah. So this little bit here is counted as a whole book. And it's the words here, the fact that this strike took place in the week of Parshas Shelach, when Israel attacked Iran, Vahi bin Saharon ve'yamamesheh, kuma Hashem ve'yafutzu oyevecha ve'yanusu mesanecha mipanecha. When the ark would journey, Moshe said, "Rise up, Hashem, let your enemies be scattered, let all those who hate you flee from before you." And then the next, and that we say when we open our Kodesh, "V'noicha yoma shuva Hashem revos alfei Yisrael," and when it rested, he would say, "Reside in tranquility of Hashem among the myriad thousands of Israel." That book is the book that has been written since the time the Torah was given until Mashiach comes. That is why it's called a book. It's just 2 verses, I think it's 85 letters, but it is a book because it's a book of the entire history of the world. That book of Torah is being written by us right now. The way we react and the way we recognize Hashem in the world is what that book of Torah is about. And so, because we are in a state of war, one of the things we do in any time there's distress, and we've certainly been saying it since Simchas Torah on October 7, many different chapters of Tehillim. Most people say chapter 20, chapter 121, 130, and 142. Those are the main ones that people generally say. But what I wanted to do was go through some of the chapters of Tehillim and just go through some of the things that they say and work through reasons why we might say these things in times of war, in times of distress, and the power of Tehillim. So Tehillim was Tehillim was edited by King David. There are several authors of Tehillim. It's brought, as far as I recall, there are 10 different authors of Tehillim. Most of it was written by King David, but many different people wrote some of the chapters of Tehillim, all the way back to Adam HaRishon. The shir that we say on Shabbos, the shir shel Yom we say for Shabbos, is attributed to Adam HaRishon. So, going through some of the Tehillim, chapter 20, and I've just got an art scroll Tehillim, and I'm just going to read. Before every chapter of Tehillim, they put a note as to a brief summary. It's 1 or 2 lines as to what this chapter is about. I'll just turn back to page 19. Contemplation of nature and study of Torah will both teach man to recognize his creator, but it's only Torah that can teach how to relate to God and how to achieve spiritual fulfillment. That was chapter 19. Many of the Tehillim are introduced by a line telling you this was music. This was sung and still is sung today in the temple. We sing Hallel, for example. So many of them are introduced by a line as to what type of instrument is played, who needs to say it, how it's said. So chapter 20 starts, it's the note here says God responds in times of distress. Lamnatzach mizmor leDavid, for the conductor, a psalm by David. So this is the conductor needs to know the musical notes and words of this psalm. Yancha Hashem b'yom tzara. Answer me, Hashem, on the day of my distress. Yisagevcha Shem Elokei Yaakov. May you be impregnable by the name of Hashem, of the God of Yaakov. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. May Hashem dispatch your help from the sanctuary and from Zion. Support, remember all who call in your offerings, your burnt offerings, etc. Naranana b'shuasecha. May we sing for joy at your salvation. V'shem Elokeinu nigdol, and in the name of Hashem, raise our banner. Yimale Hashem kol mishalasecha. May Hashem fulfill all your requests. Now I know Hashem has saved his anointed one. He'll answer me from his sacred heaven with his omnipotent victories of his right arm. And then the next ones are the next couple of lines. Ele varechev ve'ele vasusim. Some attack with chariots and some with horses. V'anachnu b'shem Hashem. We call out in the name of Hashem. Elokeinu, our God. Nazkir, we call out. Hema karu v'nafalu. They dropped to their knees and fell. V'anachnu kamnu, but we arose. Nis oidar, and we're invigorated. Hashem Hoshia Melech Yaneni V'Yom Korenu. Hashem, may the King answer us on the day we call him. We ask Hashem to answer us when we call him. They come with their horses and their chariots and their noises and they scream out, and we daven to Hashem. That is said by soldiers when going into battle. Okay, let's jump to the Shir HaMa'alos, Tehillim. Now we all know Shir HaMa'alos from before benching on Shabbos and Yom Tov. That is one of them. There's 15 chapters from 120 to 134 that start with Shir HaMa'alos, although 121 starts with Shir LaMa'alos. I'll come to that in a moment. So let's run through these 15 chapters. Not all of them. I'm just going to run through what's written in the beginning and we'll focus on a couple of them. 120, the first of 15 songs of ascent. Shir HaMa'alos means a song of ascent. Those people who go up. These were sung by the Leviim in the temple. There were 15 steps in the temple, and they stood on the 15 steps singing these 15 chapters of Tehillim. The first of 15 songs of ascent requests God's salvation from those who use slander and lies to wage war. Think of where we're at right now. The slander and lies that we've heard about the Jewish people for the last many, many years. And the reasons and the way they've sucked people in, riding on little boats, trying to bring a loaf of bread and a glass of water. I don't need to say anymore. People are being sucked into this terrible, terrible lie of who's right and who's wrong. Okay, 121, Kuf Chaf Aleph, a declaration of faith and a prayer for God's constant protection. So this one's, all of the others start Shir HaMa'alos, a song of ascent. This one's Shir LaMa'alos, a song to those who are ascending. La means to them. Ese eina el he'arim. I rise my eyes, lift up my eyes to the mountains. Ma'ayin yavo Ezri, from whence cometh my help. Ezri me'im Hashem, my help comes from Hashem. Oiseh shamayim va'aretz, maker of heaven and earth. We look up to Hashem, who is the one who made heaven and earth. Hashem is the one who brings the health, brings everything we need. Al yitena raglecha, he will not allow our foot to falter. Al yanum shomrecha, nor will the guardian slumber. Hashem's not asleep on the job. Hashem's awake and with us. Sometimes we just don't see it. It's not, he neither sleeps nor slumbers, the guardian of Israel. Hashem is your guardian. Hashem is your protective shade. Al yad minecha, at your right hand. Your mama shemesh lo yakecha. But day the sun will not harm you. Varech balayla, nor the moon at night. Hashem yishmach mikol ra. Hashem will protect you from all evil. He will guard your soul. Hashem yishmot tzesecha v'yecha meyat haveat olam. Hashem will guard your departure, your arrival, until this time forever, for eternity. Hashem is there to protect us and guard us at all times. 122. Shir HaMa'alos LeDavid, a song of ascent by David, a hymn to Yerushalayim, the city where every visitor experiences an encounter with holiness. In order to, not everybody feels that holiness, but it's like everything else. We need to train ourselves in everything to feel things, to understand things. And if we can train ourselves to understand, Yerushalayim is the holiest place on earth. Hashem's presence is in Yerushalayim. We can learn to feel Hashem's presence there. Remembering that King David wasn't fully in control. He took Yerushalayim. He bought Yerushalayim in his time, but the temple was only built after he had died. He had his palace there, but not the temple at that point. Okay, 123. A Jew in exile learns for Hashem, yearns for Hashem. Shir Hamalas Elecha Nasasi Es Einai. Song of Ascents, to you I raised my eyes, for you dwell in the heavens. Behold, like the eyes of your servants unto the hand of your master, like the eyes of a maid unto the hand of her mistress. So our eyes unto you, Hashem, our God, until he will favor us, Hashem, favor us, for we are fully sated with contempt. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 4. Shir Malas David. It's only God's care and protection that has saved the Jewish people from extinction. It's only the promise of Hashem. Every nation in the world has disappeared, essentially. You think, where the Babylonians, where the Assyrians, where the Persians and Greeks, and where the Greeks. None of those people are the same people that were there 2, 3, 4, whatever, 1,000 years ago. They're all gone. Where are the Romans? Where's every nation that's been there, that's attacked us? They've all gone. They're no longer the same nation that was there. But Hashem says, no, the Jewish people will always be there. 125, those who trust in God will be secure in his protection. We trust in God. Those who trust are like Har Zion, that does not topple but forever abides. Yerushalayim, mountains surround it, and Hashem surrounds his people until from this time for eternity the rod of wickedness shall not rest upon the lot of the righteous, so that the righteous shall not extend into iniquity into their hands. 126. Shara Malas B'Shuv Hashem Es Shivas Tzion Ha'inu Kechomim. I think we all know that. Then Hashem will return Israel to its land, rejuvenated in body and spirit. That's what we sing, benching on Shabbos and Yom Tov, chapter 126. It might be worth just going through some of this because we often sing this very quickly or say it very quickly and don't even realize what we're saying. Song of Ascents, when we'll return from the captivity of Zion, we'll be like dreamers. Then they will be filled with laughter from our mouths, and from our tongues will be with glad song. Then we will declare among the nations, greatly has Hashem done with these. Greatly has Hashem done with us. Hayinu semechim, we were gladdened. Shuva Hashem, return Hashem, es shivitzenu ka'afikim ba'negev, our captivity like springs in the desert. Hazorim berdima, those who sow tearfully, berina yitzoru, will reap in joy. Halach yelech uvachanoise, meshach hazara, he walks weeping, does he carry the measures of seeds? Bo yava berina, but return, he will return in exaltation. Noise alumasav, bearer of his sheep. Hashem will return us in joy. We just need to hang on. 127. Shir Hamalas Lishloima, Song of Ascents for King Solomon. So King David wrote this for Shlomo, for Solomon. It's not in man's power to ensure the desired results for his action. Only God crowns man's effort with success. This is also true in raising children to serve Hashem. 128. Only the righteous person and his family experience true bliss in both worlds. Meaning, we need to focus on being more righteous so that we can get the beauty and understand the way of this world and then get the benefits in the next world. 129. Israel's survival against all odds attests to God's providential control of its destiny. Hashem is in charge. 130, which is one of the important ones that we do say in times of distress, because a person in distress prays to God from the depths of his heart. Shir Hamalos, the Song of Ascents. Mima'akim karasicha Hashem. From the depths I call you Hashem. Hashem shima bakoli. O Lord, hear my voice. Tiena oznecha. Then may your ears keshuvas the kol tachna, be attentive to the sound of my plea. Im avanos tishmar ya. If my iniquity is you preserve Hashem. Hashem mi yamoid. O Lord, who could survive? Ki imcha eslicha, who is forgiveness? Who has forgiveness? It's with you, Hashem. Leman tivare, so that you may be feared. Kivisi Hashem kivsa nafshi, I place my hope in you, Hashem. My soul placed its hope in you. V'lidvora chalti, and for your word did I yearn. Nafshi ladonai shomrim laboke. My soul yearns for the Lord among those longing for the dawn. Those longing for the dawn. We were longing for the light. We need to see light. Dawn is always a time of knowledge, of understanding. Oh, it's light. We haven't got that fear. It's light is coming. That's what we're longing for. That light of understanding and freedom. Yachel Israel el Hashem. Israel shall yearn for Hashem, ki ima Hashem chesed, because Hashem is kindness. He's abundant with his redemption. Hashem will redeem us with extreme kindness. Israel, and he will redeem the Jewish people, mikol avonosav, from all its iniquities. That is one of the songs we say. We say that also on Rosh Hashanah till Yom Kippur in davening. We say that as well. It's said a number of times during the year, but certainly in times of distress. 131, a righteous person is not arrogant. Arrogance doesn't belong with righteousness. We recognize that everything comes from Hashem. 132, if one cannot complete a task, yet faithfully lays the groundwork, the final goal will be achieved in his merit. The first temple was built by Solomon, but it's credited to David. King David wasn't allowed to build it, but he's credited with being the builder of the first temple. 133, the idyllic unity among brothers brings God's blessing. Hine matov v'manayim sheves achim gam yachad. Very famous words in the song. Shir HaMalos LeDavid, a song of ascents by David. Behold, how good and how pleasant is the dwelling of brothers when they are in unity. Even in exile, the Jewish people bless Hashem is 134. And that's the end of the Shir HaMalos. Just very, very quickly, 137. 136 is what we call Hallel Hagadol. We say that every Shabbos and Yom Tov in Pesukei Zimra, and we say that as part of Hallel on Seder night. Each phrase is Hodel Hashem ki tov ki l'olam chastoi, Hodel Elokim ki l'olam chastoi, for his kindness endures forever. Ki l'olam chastoi. Hashem provides us with everything. Then 137, many people have the custom to say this when benching not on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Al naros Bavel sham yishavnu gam bechina b'zechreni es Zion. But you might remember the song by Boney M in the 70s or 80s, by the rivers of Babylon. There we sat and wept. Interesting enough that they would pick this. They never sat by any rivers of Babylon weeping. We did when we remembered Zion. Al Aravim Basecha Tali Karaseni Ki Sham Shani Shover Divrei Shir Shimcha Shir La Hashem Tzirchen Ech Nashir Shir Hashem Al Admas Nechar. I want to get to the next line, so I'll just run through what that is. When we remembered Zion on the willows, with it we hung our lyres for their lyres as in musical instruments, Lyres. For there we requested the captors that we sing songs to play with our lyres. For us, songs of Zion. How can we sing the song of Hashem? In fact, a number of the Levium cut their own thumbs off, so they wouldn't be able to play the musical instruments. If I forget you, Yerushalayim, may my tongue be stuck to my palate. If I forget you, Yerushalayim, let my right hand forget its skill. Tidbak l'shoni l'chichi imlo es karechi. Let my tongue be stuck to a palate if I don't remember you. Imlo ale es Yerushalayim oros simchasi. If I fail to elevate Yerushalayim above every foremost of my joys. Zachor Hashem livna Edom es Yerushalayim. Remember Hashem, Edom, the offspring of Edom on Yerushalayim, because they destroyed Yerushalayim. This is going forward. King David wrote this, but it was going forward to Edom being Roman Empire 1,000 years later. Ha'emrim aru ad yesod bas babel hashtuda ashrei shalom shalach es melech shavrat lanu ashrei asher chetz nipetz es olayich el asala. Hashem repays those who destroy to the very foundation. O Bavel, who's been violated, praiseworthy, the one who repays you, pays you your recompense for how you were treated. Praiseworthy will be those one who will dash infants against the rock. Tehillim is extremely, extremely powerful. Say them in English if you can't say them in Hebrew. But at the end of the day, Tehillim is the one work that has saved us. Those 150 chapters have saved the Jewish people throughout history. You hear stories of the Chafetz Chaim, who spoke about his mother's book of Tehillim that he took after she had passed away. It was falling apart. It was covered in tears. It's the one thing that has kept us connected to Hashem through everything we do. And at times like this, we need to sit back and just take out a chapter of Tehillim and say, Hashem, it's all in your hands. We don't know what to do. We don't know what's happening. There's nothing we can do. And everybody, to hear secular government ministers in Israel invoking words of Tehillim is an incredible chizuk, because they are starting to realize that everything comes from Hashem. We need to put in our ishtadlus, we need to put in our effort. Our effort here, sitting on the other side of the world, is davening and saying Tehillim. And we hope and pray that Hashem gives us salvation speedily. There should be no more death on any side. We don't want death. Jewish people are not about murder. We're about protection. We're about connecting to Hashem. And we hope and pray that Hashem sends the salvation, sends Mashiach, that the world will know only peace.
Amen.